You never expect your life to fracture on a good day. That's the thing nobody tells you. You expect the collapse to come during a fight, or maybe when you're already down, like the world will follow some poetic script. But the truth is, it doesn't care. It was a Wednesday. A hot, muggy Houston afternoon, the kind where your shirt sticks to your back just stepping outside. I was still holding my suit jacket in one hand as I walked out of the elevator at Middleton and Park, the air conditioning blasting as if it could wash away 7 years of billable hours. It was official, I'd just been promoted to junior partner. My name would be on the door. Joshua Wallace, ESQ partner. I stared at it in my mind like I'd finally unlocked something permanent. The managing partner, Charles, clapped me on the shoulder like a proud dad. "You've earned it," he said, grinning. "Now get out of here before we chain you to your desk for another 7 years. I smiled, laughed, nodded. The whole drive home I was replaying that moment in my head. I kept thinking about how I'd tell Melanie. She'd been through all the ups and downs with me, the bar exam nerves, the brutal associate hours, the years where our whole marriage ran on caffeine and faith. We'd made it. I wanted to pop a bottle of the cheap champagne we kept tucked away for something big. This was it. I texted her just as I pulled into the driveway. We did it. Finally. Drinks tonight? And then, as an afterthought, tell Evan Daddy finally made partner. No response. I figured she was busy. Evan would have just finished his afternoon nap, maybe she was elbow deep in crayons and snacks. I sat in the car a little longer than usual, letting the AC hum around me, scrolling through emails I wasn't planning to answer yet. I didn't want to go inside and find more laundry, more mess, more ordinary. But something shifted the second I stepped through the front door. The house was quiet, too quiet. No cartoons, no pitter-patter feet, no soft humming from the kitchen. Just silence. I called out once, then again. Nothing. That's when I noticed my phone vibrating in my jacket pocket. I hadn't even realized I left it there. One new message. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. Don't come back. At first, I thought it was spam, some scam or bot. But it was followed by an image attachment. I tapped on it, not thinking anything of it. The image loaded slowly, piece by piece, the top edge of a car window, then a familiar glimpse of blonde hair, and then Melanie's face. She was in the passenger seat of a car, turned slightly toward a man. His hand was resting on her thigh. Not the kind of hand placement you give to a friend. Her expression, it wasn't caught off guard. She was smiling. Comfortable. An asterisk, mate. And then my eyes drifted toward the back seat, and that's when my stomach dropped. It was Evan's backpack. The little blue one with the dinosaurs. I recognized the frayed stitching on the strap where he dragged it across the pavement a few weeks ago. I'd sewn it up myself. That bag was in the back of a stranger's car, not a friend's, not a rideshare, not a school bus. I froze. Every part of me wanted to believe there was some explanation. A prank. A mix-up. Something. Anything but what I was starting to think. I stared at the image for a long time, long enough that my phone screen dimmed and locked, forcing me to wake it up again like I was daring myself to look once more. Then came the follow-up message. This time from Melanie's number. "Josh, I don't know who sent that. It's a joke. Seriously. That's Jacob, remember? From my old support group? The one for single moms? He's just a friend. Someone's being malicious." I read it 3 times. She even threw in a second message. "I swear I didn't send that pic. Someone's messing with us. Maybe Jacob's ex? I'll explain when you get home. Please don't overreact." Overreact? I didn't even feel anything yet. Just numb. I walked into the kitchen and dropped my keys on the counter like muscle memory. The house was clean. Cleaner than usual. I remember that specifically. The dishes were done, the counters wiped down, Evan's toys neatly lined up along the wall. It was like someone had staged a version of our life to look perfect. But the photo on my phone didn't care about appearances. I sat at the table, still in my work clothes, my tie half undone, the messages glowing in my hand. I knew Jacob, or at least I used to. He was in one of those new parent groups Melanie joined after Evan was born. We'd seen him once, maybe twice. Quiet guy. I never thought twice about him. I remember him helping carry diaper boxes once, that was it. Now he was in a car with my wife, his hand resting like he owned something that wasn't his to own. I didn't reply to her. I didn't call. I didn't scream. I just sat there and felt the edges of the picture start to crawl into my mind like rot. She said it was a joke. But that look on her face, that wasn't a joke. I knew that look. It was the same look she gave me before our first date ended with her stealing one of my hoodies. The same look she gave me when she whispered, "We're pregnant," through tears and laughter. Even when we were barely scraping by. That kind of look doesn't get handed out to family friends. The worst part? I didn't feel rage. Not yet. Just something cold and deep and spreading fast. Like the part of me that believed we were solid, stable, untouchable, was beginning to slip away. I spent the rest of the evening sitting in the garage, in the driver's seat of my car, door open, warm air sticking to my skin. I stared at that image again and again. Zoomed in, zoomed out. Her posture, the angle, the way her arm leaned just slightly toward him like she was used to him being close. I counted the seconds between reading and rereading her message, wondering which part was supposed to be the lie. Eventually, I walked back inside. Evan was asleep in his room. His nightlight glowed under the door, the same little rocket ship he picked out last Christmas. I stood there for a while, my hand on the doorknob, wondering if I could open it without crumbling. I didn't. I went to the guest room instead and lay down fully clothed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding in rhythms that felt unfamiliar. The day I got promoted, the day I finally stepped into the career I built from scratch, was the same day I started doubting the very foundation of my life. I should have been celebrating. Instead, I was questioning if the last few years had been a performance, if the person I trusted most had been acting this whole time, and whether I was the only one who didn't realize the curtain had already fallen. I didn't sleep that night, not even a minute. I lay in the guest bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling as the fan spun above me with a quiet, lazy rhythm that felt almost cruel in its indifference. My body was still, but my mind was chaos. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photo again. Melanie leaning in, Jacob's hand on her thigh, Evan's backpack like a background prop in a scene I never agreed to. She said it was a joke. Said the sender was trying to stir things up. But who sends a joke like that? Who finds that kind of image in that kind of context funny? By 4:30 a.m., I was up. I made coffee I didn't drink and stood at the sink, staring out the window. The street was still dark, save for a few porch lights flickering on as neighbors started their routines. Families getting ready for school, for work. People who believed their lives were still intact. I wondered if any of them had a message like mine waiting for them. It's funny how fast things shift once doubt creeps in. You start combing through the past like a detective who missed something obvious the first time. Except now, everything feels like a clue. That morning, I walked back to our bedroom for the first time since I got home. Melanie was curled up in bed, her back to the door. I stood there for a moment, just watching. Her phone was on the nightstand, face down. I used to find that normal. Now it screamed at me. I turned away. On the drive to work, I replayed things I hadn't thought about in years. Not because I forgot them, but because I dismissed them. Shrugged them off as quirks or moments of stress or being hormonal, like everyone said during the pregnancy. But now those memories didn't feel harmless. They felt like threads unraveling. One of the first was the night she told me she was pregnant. We weren't trying, not exactly, but we weren't avoiding it either. Still, it was a surprise. She cried when she told me. Tears of joy, she said. But something about her eyes felt distant, like she was watching my reaction more than feeling the moment herself. Back then, I chalked it up to shock. But now I remembered something else. That same week, she was oddly quiet around me. She'd disappear into the bathroom for long stretches, claiming nausea, but I'd hear her voice. Not throwing up, talking, whispering. And when I asked her about it, she brushed it off. I'm venting to my sister, she said. It's just pregnancy stuff. I'm allowed to have feelings, Josh. I apologized. I always did. A few weeks after that, she got a new necklace. A delicate gold chain with a little gemstone in the center. She said she found it on clearance at some boutique store. Swore it was only $30. At the time, we were watching every penny, saving for the baby. We'd agreed no extras, no splurges. I remember saying, $30 is still $30, Mel. We can't just impulse buy jewelry right now. She snapped, said I was controlling, said she couldn't even treat herself without it being a problem. I backed off. Now I wondered if that necklace had really come from a store. Then there were the holidays, birthdays, anniversaries. She always had a reason to leave the house. Running to the store real quick, she'd say. Forgot something for Evan's gift. Or, I have a migraine. I need a break before the family shows up. She'd vanish for hours. Come back calm. Almost too calm. Smiling just enough to make me feel guilty for asking where she went. Every time I confronted the feeling, that gnawing suspicion, I buried it. Why? Because I loved her. Because I trusted her. Because the idea that Melanie, the person I'd built my life around, might be lying to me didn't fit into the version of reality I wanted to live in. But now, everything I had ignored started falling into place like pieces of a puzzle that had always been upside down. The biggest piece? Evan. I never wanted to say it out loud. Not to myself. Not even in passing. But he didn't look like me. And not in the way kids often don't look like their parents. I'm dark-haired, olive-skinned. Melanie's blonde. Evan? Reddish-blonde hair, pale as paper, freckles across his nose. It wasn't just the coloring. It was his whole face. His bone structure. His nose. His ears. Nothing matched. People commented sometimes. "He must get that from your wife's side," they'd say, and I'd smile and nod. I even made jokes about recessive genes. But the truth? The doubt was there. Quiet. Small. A whisper. And now that whisper was screaming. I went into work that morning and sat at my desk like a ghost. My email was flooded with congratulations. "You earned it, man. Let's get drinks soon. Proud of you." And I just sat there, staring at that same photo on my phone, my thumb hovering over it like I was waiting for it to change. Like maybe it would rearrange itself into something innocent. Family photo. A smile without meaning. A hand without weight. Around noon, Melanie texted again. "Can we please talk tonight? I'll explain everything. Promise. I didn't cheat. I swear, Josh. I love you." I stared at the words. I love you. Those words used to feel like armor. Now they felt like a disguise. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened a private browser window and searched for DNA testing kits. I wasn't ready to accuse. I wasn't even ready to admit what I was thinking. But I needed something. A piece of truth I could hold in my hand. Something no one could spin or deny or gaslight. Felt wrong. Like I was betraying Evan. Like I was turning suspicion onto a child who loved me, trusted me. But if Melanie had lied about everything else, what if she'd lied about that too? When I got home that night, dinner was on the table. Spaghetti, garlic bread, Evan's favorite. Melanie was trying to play normal, smiling too big, talking too fast. "Josh, hey, Evan drew something for you. Tell Daddy what you made today." Evan came running with a drawing, a rocket ship with 3 stick figures inside. One of them was labeled me. One said Mommy. The last? It said Jake. Not Daddy. Just Jake. Melanie's face froze for half a second before she recovered. "He meant you," she said quickly. "Right, sweetie? You got mixed up." Evan blinked and nodded, confused. I didn't say anything. I just smiled, kissed the top of his head, and told him it looked amazing. He beamed, ran off to play. I stood there, staring at the picture, heart pounding so loud I thought she might hear it. Later that night, I lay beside Melanie in bed for the first time in days. She fell asleep quickly or pretended to. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, counting every breath, every second between them. The pieces no longer fit. And the more I tried to force them back together, the more I realized maybe they never did. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Again. My body was beginning to treat sleep like a luxury I no longer deserved. My eyes burned, but there was no point in fighting it. I got up, moved through the house like a ghost, poured myself a cup of cold coffee from yesterday's pot, and stood at the window like I'd done every morning since the photo. Outside, everything looked the same. A world oblivious to what was unraveling behind my front door. Melanie didn't stir. Neither did Evan. I watched the clock tick from 5:45 to 6 o'clock, then decided I couldn't keep sitting on my hands. I needed clarity. I needed truth. Even if it shattered everything I thought I knew, I couldn't keep living in this purgatory of maybes. I didn't go to the office that day. Instead, I rented a car, An unmarked silver SUV from a place across town. I didn't want to use mine, too obvious. Melanie knew it too well. She'd recognize it in a second. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just drove. I waited in a grocery store parking lot a block away from the apartment where Melanie and Evan stayed during the week. We kept separate places ever since things got rocky last year. It was supposed to be temporary, a way to figure things out without making it feel like a split. I was trying to give her space. To save what we had. Now I wondered if I had just given her freedom. Around 7:30 a.m. a man stepped out of the building. The same man from the photo. Jacob. I'd only seen him in person once or twice before, long ago, but I recognized him immediately. Same posture, same build, same casual arrogance. But it wasn't just him. He was holding Evan. Carrying him, actually one arm under Evan's legs, the other across his back. Evan looked comfortable. Familiar. Too comfortable. Melanie followed close behind, barefoot, laughing at something he said. Her hair was a mess, not messy from sleep, but messy like she'd just woken up next to someone and didn't bother to fix it. She wore a large t-shirt that hung past her waist, one I didn't recognize. She looked light. Free. Like someone who wasn't hiding anymore. She kissed Jacob. Just a quick peck, but intentional. Practiced. Then they got in his car, all three of them, and drove off. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I sat in the rental with the engine idling, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that I felt my fingers start to ache. My heart wasn't pounding. It wasn't even racing. It was slow. Steady. Cold. I took a photo. One of those hold down the shutter moments, like instinct. Jacob, Evan, Melanie. Together. Like a family. I watched the screen on my phone glow with the captured image and felt something crack quietly inside me, not like a plate smashing on the ground, but like a hairline fracture in concrete. Subtle. Dangerous. When I finally moved, I drove home in silence. No radio. No phone. No music. Just the sound of tires on asphalt and my own breathing, uneven and shallow. That night, I ordered the DNA test. Rush delivery. No more theories. No more what-ifs. I waited 2 days, barely functioning. I went through the motions, ate food I couldn't taste, went to meetings I don't remember. Melanie texted a few times. I didn't respond. The test arrived in a plain white envelope as if it were just another delivery, not the thing that would rewrite my reality. I waited until Melanie took Evan to a play date. I took the toothbrush he used at my house, the little green one with the T-Rex handle, and followed the instructions to the letter. I sent it off and sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the box it came in. 3 days later, the results arrived in my inbox at 6:42 a.m. I didn't hesitate. I opened the message, scanned for the part 1, already knew was coming. Probability of paternity, 0%. I didn't move. Not for several minutes. Just stared at the screen like it might change if I blinked hard enough. But it didn't. I wasn't Evan's biological father. And somewhere deep inside, I think I had known all along. Not because of his freckles or his hair or his eyes, but because of the way Melanie flinched every time I tried to make plans for our future. The way she avoided questions about timelines, about conception dates, about anything that required precision. Everything she gave me was fuzzy. Evasive. Now I understood why. The rage didn't come right away. Neither did the grief. It was just silence, thick and heavy, like fog filling my chest. I sent the result to Melanie. No words. Just the PDF and a subject line that said, simply, "So we're done pretending." She called immediately. I didn't answer. She texted 100 times over the next hour, explanations, denial, desperation. It doesn't change anything, Josh. You were his dad. You raised him. This doesn't mean what you think it does. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. Please don't punish Evan. Please don't do this. Each one chipped away at whatever was left of the image I'd been clinging to. She had known. Of course she had. She knew the moment Evan was born. Maybe even before that. She looked me in the eyes for 5 years and let me believe I was building a future with my child, my blood. My son. But I was building it on a lie. That night, I sat on the floor of Evan's room. He wasn't there. Just his toys scattered across the rug like evidence. A stuffed elephant he'd named Moose. A Lego spaceship we built last weekend. The little baseball glove I bought him that still had the tag on it. I cried. Not for Melanie. Not even for me. For Evan. Because none of this was his fault. He was just a kid who loved me. Who trusted me. Who had no idea the people around him were burning his life down by degrees. But I couldn't keep doing it. Couldn't keep pretending. Couldn't lie to myself one more day. When Melanie came by the next morning, I met her at the door. She was crying before I even said a word. Josh, please? I messed up. But Evan needs you. You're his father. I handed her the test results in a manila folder. She didn't take it. I saw you, I said. My voice wasn't angry. Just tired. The other morning. You kissed him. You didn't even try to hide it. She froze. You knew. You always knew. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't want to lose you. You did anyway, I replied. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. We're done, I said. And I want you both out of the apartment by the end of the month. She broke. I watched her collapse into tears, clutching her arms, shaking. I wanted to feel something. I really did. But there was nothing left. She asked if Evan could stay with me that weekend. I told her no. Not until I figured out what I was legally required to do. Not until I spoke to someone. That afternoon I called an attorney. I need to know where I stand, I told him. Because what started as suspicion had become reality, and I was no longer sure what, if anything, I still had a right to hold onto. When I first called the attorney, I thought the hardest part was already behind me. I had the DNA results. The truth was out. Melanie was caught. Surely, I figured all that remained was the cleanup. Sign the papers. Untangle the accounts. Let her leave with her guilt and her lies. But I didn't know what I was stepping into. I'm not Evan's biological father, I told the attorney. I just found out last week. I've been raising him under false pretenses. The line went quiet for a second before the voice on the other end replied, measured and neutral. Did you sign the birth certificate? I paused. Yes. Did you ever file anything contesting paternity before now? No. I didn't know. Another pause. Then legally, you're his father. Those words sat in the air like a bomb that hadn't gone off yet. I remember gripping the edge of my kitchen counter, trying to understand what I just heard. What do you mean? I asked, slower this time. Texas law treats legal paternity differently than biological paternity, he explained. If you signed the birth certificate and assumed the role of father, especially for this long, you're presumed to be the legal parent. Even with a DNA test, that doesn't automatically erase your obligations. Especially if the child knows you as their father. Obligations. That word hit differently now. I had been ready to sever ties, to mourn, to move on. But now suddenly I wasn't just dealing with emotional consequences. I was dealing with legal ones. I hung up numb. The reality began sinking in. This wasn't over. Melanie had already stopped responding to my texts about the apartment. I should have known she was stalling. The next week, I found out why. I got served. A knock at the door, a uniformed process server with a packet of papers addressed to me. Petition for child support. I stood there in my own hallway, flipping through the documents, reading the claims Melanie had filed, that I was Evan's legal father, that I had supported him financially since birth, that I was now attempting to abandon the child despite establishing a consistent paternal relationship. The gall. The nerve. She had lied for 5 years, lied to my face, lied to my heart, and now she was using my love for that boy as a **p***n. I called her immediately. She didn't answer. I left a message I probably shouldn't have, one that burned with betrayal. You're really doing this? After everything? You're suing me for child support for a child that isn't mine. No response. That night I couldn't breathe. I paced for hours. I stared at walls. I played every memory of Evan laughing, of me reading him bedtime stories, of us building train tracks in the living room. Every memory that used to bring me comfort now felt like evidence in a case being built against me. I finally called my attorney back. We need to fight this, I told him. I want out. All the way. He explained it wouldn't be easy. She's arguing that you acted as his father voluntarily, he said. Which means the court may still consider you responsible, especially if the biological father is absent or unknown. What about the DNA test? It's persuasive, but not definitive in a legal sense. Family court doesn't always follow blood, it follows stability. Precedent. Intent. Intent. As if I had intended to raise another man's child. As if love given under false pretenses was still legally binding. We filed a motion to terminate parental rights based on fraud. It was a gamble. A long **T. But it was all we had. Melanie's response came days later. A countersuit. Not only was she demanding full support, she was painting me as an abandoning parent. Cold. Uncaring. Spiteful. In her version of the story, I was punishing Evan for her mistake. I was walking away from a child who needed me. She even quoted my own words, texts from when he was born, birthday cards, little things I'd written on holidays. All twisted now into proof that I'd accepted fatherhood without question. I wanted to scream. The very things I was proud of, the love I gave freely, the bond one built, were now we *P*NS in her arsenal. She included photos too. Me and Evan at the park. Me helping him learn to ride a bike. Me holding him at a 4th of July picnic, the two of us laughing in the sun. I looked like a dad. I was a dad. That's what made this hurt even worse. But I wasn't his father. Not by blood. Not by choice, not if you count choice as informed consent. I was a volunteer drafted under false pretenses. A soldier in a war I never knew existed. I submitted my own evidence. The DNA test. The photo of Melanie and Jacob. Text messages. Emails. My attorney began constructing a timeline, not just of lies, but of intentional deception. She knew, he said. We just have to prove she knew when she put your name on that certificate. So we dug. Old emails. Calendar logs. Photos from her baby shower. There he was, Jacob, just out of frame in most, but present. A folded stroller in his trunk. A wristband from the hospital in one picture tucked beside her overnight bag. Details. Tiny things. But together they built a pattern. We even subpoenaed Melanie's insurance records. She'd listed Jacob as an emergency contact at one point months before Evan was born. A detail so small she probably forgot about it. But we found it. Is that enough? I asked my attorney. He didn't answer right away. Maybe. The court date was set. A custody hearing. A financial hearing. A reckoning. In the days leading up to it, I received another letter. Not legal. Handwritten. From Melanie. It wasn't an apology. Not really. More of a last-ditch appeal. Josh, I know you're angry. I understand why. But Evan doesn't. He just misses you. You were the only father he's ever known. That has to count for something. I folded the letter slowly. Set it aside. I didn't throw it away. I couldn't. Because part of me still ached for that boy. Not because of biology. Because of everything else. I loved him. But love doesn't survive in a court of law. Not when it's built on lies. When the hearing finally came, I sat across from Melanie for the first time in weeks. She looked tired. Hollowed out. Her lawyer whispered to her constantly. She avoided my eyes. My attorney made the case for fraud, misrepresentation, emotional harm. He presented the DNA results. The emergency contact logs. Photos. Witness testimony. Even a brief psychological evaluation that showed signs of prolonged deception and manipulation on Melanie's part. Her side argued continuity. They leaned hard on the idea that Evan's emotional stability depended on me. That removing me would cause psychological harm. That love, not DNA, makes apparent. I didn't disagree with that. Not really. But what about consent? What about truth? The judge took it under advisement. 2 weeks passed. Then the decision came. My parental rights were terminated. I was no longer legally Evan's father. No further support was required. I sat in the courthouse parking lot for 20 minutes after reading the verdict. The wind felt nothing like I expected. There was no triumph. No closure. Just a quiet, gaping hole where my life used to be. No appeals came. Melanie didn't contest it. Maybe she knew she'd already lost too much. But the money I'd spent? Gone. The 5 years? Gone. Evan? Gone too. The ruling brought relief, but not peace. I had to know if I was alone in this, if courts ever truly protected people like me. I hired a second attorney. We filed a motion, misrepresentation, emotional distress, paternity fraud. I submitted everything, DNA test, texts, voice memos. Even the therapist's notes I'd taken to try and understand how it all happened. Weeks later, we stood before a different judge. This time I spoke. Calm, direct, honest. I didn't give consent to be a father, I said. I gave trust and it was exploited. The court agreed. My obligations were erased. But the damage wasn't. I couldn't get back the time, the money, or the innocence I lost. Only the title of father was removed, not the hollow echo of it. Life after the ruling felt quieter than I imagined. I moved to Atlanta. New firm. Small apartment. Nobody knew what I'd been through. I stopped checking Melanie's messages. She kept sending them photos of Evan, updates, please. I read them once. Then never again. I declined her call the day Evan turned 6. She didn't try again after that. I lived like a man recovering from something invisible, no wounds on the outside, but something vital missing. I didn't date. I didn't go out much. I worked. I walked. I breathed. I waited for meaning to return.